Alright guys, while we were not filming, I guess, we pulled his motor out, pulled a bunch of stuff apart, going to powder coat. Lots of different colors happening here, but he's powder coating a decent amount of stuff, and then all this stuff came out because he has lots of things that he's powder coating, and it kind of connected to everything. And then while it's out, we'll finish up last bits that we had on the motor. We're gonna put new covers on here. Talked him into switching those because they look a little old. Get rid of those, put this fluid damper on there. Okay, he also decided in the meantime, get rid of the brake booster. Joe pulled that out, and then we're gonna make new like XRP lines, and there's no ABS pump. And then he decided to switch the clutch master. Joe's not excited about that part.
I just put that one in there.
But it might look cooler, and this whole project is for looks, for the shows, so that's all gonna go down. And then we talked about cleaning up a couple other things, so a lot more to happen here. I think you guys like this build, so we're gonna include you with it. We should have shown you time lapse of it being pulled out, but you guys have seen a motor come out. We could maybe do that of it going back in. So now that the trans mount was made, Joe's just gonna pull the trans off and put the ACT clutch on, and then put that back together, and then we kind of wait for the powder coat parts, and then in the meantime Joe will build stuff. That's the quick update on the IS, 2J IS 250. We'll do more maybe tomorrow when we're working on it.
It's like way past your bedtime, Dan. We should go to bed.
Oh yeah, it's like really late here, guys.
It's like 4:30.
Good night. I'm over here with Edgar's car. I don't know if we explained. Edgar's car's full of stuff, and we got the seats out, a lot of electrical, stock ECU. So we took out his foot brake over here. It was like the parking brake on the foot style that an IS 250 would have, because Edgar wanted to change it to handbrake style. So Joe had made a little handle for it, or a mount for the handle. He just went with this guy. Looks like a factory style look for this generation. It's from a Subaru though. He wanted was that to work in unison with like everything else and just look like it was factory. So this is the OEM cable, and I've made a mark on it where the housing would need to stay. The cable would have to be longer and modified, but there's this guy that's not too far from our shop, and he had me send a bunch of pictures back and forth, and he wants to keep this little piece in there. Let me show you. So he wanted to keep that piece that passes through the trans tunnel. It's like the cast aluminum piece. So he might modify this cable. He might work with that piece and tear it apart and pull that housing out and modify this cable. So we're gonna send it up to him. He will be able to maybe just use this into the cable and modify the back of this cable to work with what's underneath, and I'll show you guys that in a second. So for now, I'm gonna pull this out, jack the car up or lift it up on the lift, and unhook it from the e-brake cables where it tees off from side to side on the back. That's kind of how far Edgar's taking this build. He's changing all these things just so it's like the way he wants it. We just thought we'd include that with the rest of the cool stuff we're doing, because this is just like a small detail, but it's taking us like many hours to figure out. We're sending it to a custom cable company. It's just kind of, his whole build is like over the top like that. We're just showing you guys. Let's lift the car up and I'll show you underneath. Okay, so here's as it passes through right there. I'm just gonna remove this part, unhook that, and maybe he'll be able to utilize that cable. I'm not sure. That's kind of where we're headed with that. Meanwhile, we're waiting for a lot of parts at powder coat and paint, so when that comes back, we'll put the driveline back in. Let's take another look at the IS 250, guys. I know you guys have been waiting on that car. Kind of filled you in briefly on the handbrake thing that got shipped out to this dude that's working on it. But the thing is with cars like this, where everything's custom, it's kind of gonna just take a long time. And I know you guys want to see us work on it faster, but sometimes it's super complicated. So many details that we will work on it for a week and a half, and then kind of drain the funds that were forwarded from the guy that owns it, Edgar, and then wait and go back onto it once he sent more money. Or sometimes we're just not lazy, but we're stuck on another project. Depends what it is, but I know you guys want it to be like bam, 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 project's done and this is how it went, but it's kind of like real life and it goes slower than that. Here is some powder coated stuff. We got some satin black stuff. This is anodized. This is not satin black, it's really close color to it, but it has a little bit more flat in it. You could probably see it better in outdoor lighting. And then we have more satin black stuff in here. And then we have this bright yellow. Let's walk over to his car. The motor's still out. We're waiting on a little bit more powder coat that's gonna be kind of like a almost gloss black, but just a hair less. It'd be like 80% probably, with a little bit of flat in there, you know, 80% gloss. Since I last showed you guys the brake, Joe had worked on this portion of the foot brake stuff. This will like turn down how much pressure goes to the back, reduction valve type thing. So this, we don't have it set yet. It will get kind of adjusted for feel, for the driver preference. So he's gonna go with this chase base setup. It's not power assisted now, so that's gonna be a much different feel from what he's used to. But we also don't want the back brakes to lock up first, so we'll turn it down, turn the flow down until it has minimal, you know, maybe like 30% in the back, the rest in the front. Still doesn't have ABS, so it's harder to press on a brake without power assist, so he'll have to get used to that. He knows it's going to be different, but he's more into the cleanliness of the engine bay, so we wanted to minimize all the stuff going on there. One other thing we didn't really cover in detail, we kind of maybe mentioned it, but we didn't cover it, is we said we're getting a Treadstone intercooler. So we got one and we installed it, and we kind of just maybe showed you through the bumper. I'm not sure at that point exactly, but I wanted to show you more. Joe had taken this crash beam off and welded these aluminum 1/8" brackets to the crash beam, the OEM crash beam here in the front that holds the intercooler. And Treadstone intercoolers, for the most part, will come with some sort of threaded portion. It's not a weld-in bung, it's cast part of the in-tank, but it's threaded, so we were just able to use that. Pretty cool feature that Treadstone will always have on there. And this is not like a super giant intercooler like you'd see on maybe my Supra or whatever. This is just one that's capable of, I think it said 650 horsepower, and he's gonna probably have more like 500 horsepower. He'll be good to go. We also added a flex fuel sensor in line after the return. It's down under the car. That's something so he can put pump gas, be driving around, you know, run the tank really low. I'm gonna add in flex fuel. His ECU will adapt and see it because the flex fuel sensor is constantly monitoring, and then his car will have more capable power. Another thing that we had done that I think we mentioned briefly, but we didn't go into like any kind of specs or details on it, was this radiator. So we had to fit it way up in here, which is where the AC condenser used to be, but he was okay with losing AC because it's just like he really wants this to be a good looking show car and have a clean engine bay and have a 2J in it. So it's just a universal dual pass radiator you can buy on Summit Racing. So that's why the in and the out are on the same exact side, because it goes in. There's a little block here halfway down. Water will go in, cross flow over there, fall all the way down on that end tank, come back over here, be sucked back into the motor. So it stays in the radiator twice as long, and it should cool better in theory. They usually do work a lot better. There's been cases where it doesn't work as good, but like we've done it many times, and always we have great success with a dual pass. They make triple passes, but we don't really typically use that. A dual pass, good one, will work great. And when I say it's universal, they just sell it on Summit, and you just look and look and look until you find the right brand or the right size that will fit in between the frame rails of that given chassis. We'll typically get a CNR, but if you can't get a CNR, because CNR doesn't have every size in the world, I would get AFCO. Sometimes this is a AFCO. There's other companies like Ron Davis or whatever, but AFCO seems to be a good one to get, or Griffin also is another one. So we usually either buy a Griffin or AFCO on a Z or 240 that like a CNR can't fit in. If you can force a CNR one, it's like my favorite brand for Radiator, so I'll always get that. And then Durali fan shrouds, there's many different sizes. So you just find the right size that'll cover majority or all of the core of that given radiator. We'll always like have to do a little massaging on the Durali fan shroud kit to adjust it or weld tabs, and like you can see down there, those tabs are been welded on there. Joe did that. This one was kind of easy actually, but sometimes we'll trim like a half moon shape out of the edge here if it's like just an in-between size and we need, you know, for the AN to be able to twist on and off, and then you'll have to weld in part of a pipe right there. Like you cut an aluminum intake pipe or an intercooler tubing pipe, like part of it off, and like that's kind of what we'll do. But in this case, we didn't have to do that, and then we welded where the cap would have gone shut. So this is a sealed radiator system, and his expansion tank was gonna go up here. You guys saw that already. It's gone at powder coat right now. It'll bleed off the top of the radiator right there, back into itself. I just wanted to fill you guys in on that because you're thinking like, oh, this is just a simple build. I want to 2J swap my IS250. No, you're never gonna 2J swap your IS250, like literally never, unless you spend as much money to buy a Mark IV Supra that has 1,000 horsepower almost. Like this guy is going over the top on the details, but to 2J swap an IS250, if you own an IS250, it's not really something obtainable unless you want to spend far beyond what you paid for the car new from the dealership. So just take that into mind, and then think of all the excessive amounts of like little details we did on this car. Just trial and error from other race car builds for years and years and years of doing it. So then we're able to like put that into this build and like use our knowledge from previous builds, which you couldn't just throw in a radiator. It wouldn't even fit. Like your stock radiator wouldn't fit with the motor and still be able to have a fan on it. That's just one simple thing. They don't make engine mounts. We're not trying to mass produce that because there isn't a market for it. There's only a couple people, and now the cost of a 2J going up past $6,000. You're not gonna NA 2J swap it. That might be sad news to some of you, but I just wanted to see or show you guys the reality of like the effort that was put into this car and still being put into this car. It's basically like a full race car, but it's his show car and it's not going racing, but that's the deal here. I think we already showed you guys how we mounted that oil cooler. It's over here to the side, so it's not gonna interrupt the airflow. You're already interrupting the airflow with the intercooler to the radiator. If you do it again with an oil cooler and or a power steering cooler or AC condenser, the car tends to be heat soaked and just overheat the entire time, especially in a state like California where it's hot. So that's just a quick update. We're gonna keep working on it right now. Joe's gonna probably put this master cylinder in. It was a stock one from a Mark IV Supra, and then Edgar changed his mind to have it match this Tilton Chase base thing, which was a change of mind because of a couple months went by. So now we're switching that to this Titan Motorsports setup that uses a Tilton Master. That's that little piece over there I said was anodized. Joe's gonna do that right now and adapt it to this pedal from an IS300. This whole car, everything we touch is like custom one-off things, and Edgar's willing to see that out with us, which makes it a really cool project for you guys to see. Next video, what you're gonna expect to see is everything back from powder coat, even the stuff you don't see, the motor come back into the shop. Right now we have it stored in the container, and we're gonna bring it back in the shop, put all these nice powder coated bits on it, put the clutch or the ACT clutch, mate the trans up to the motor, put it back in the car for hopefully the last time, and then start connecting everything, and then kind of show you as that happens, and then we'll tell you what's next after that, because we still have wiring to do and a couple more things to do. All right guys, till next time, that's the IS250 for now.